Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So in the past video I did a comparison with my Scareclaw list as opposed as the other two top performing lists from regionals that has happened in the past weeks, and there's one engine that is caught my eye that none of them were playing, and this is the Brave Token slash Adventure engine. So, if you remember when Grand Creators first got released, this engine was very powerful. This engine took a lot of spots into a lot of decks, and you can say that because of this engine, some decks just got neutered on their TCG Forbidden Limited list just because they were very strong due to the participation of these cards alongside it. We're talking about cards like Artifact Scythe, Prank Kids Meow Meow Mew, Crystal Hulky Fibrax, just to name like a few of them. So in the OCG and the Master Duel, this engine got hit on both regions. However, here in the TCG, this engine never got hit. This engine never got never got any treatment, or never got any cards from their the perspective engine touched in any way, shape, or form. So we're here to answer the question as what happened to this engine and why is it not being performed as optimal right now. Right now we're currently in a format where a lot of non-engine is played. Some cards that are part of the non-engine slots in people's decks are engines that don't do well against the adventure cards. I'm talking about Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, Infinite Impermanence. Those are all cards that really don't do well against stuff like this. This engine is also really strong, both going first or second. If you go first, you just put Wandering Griffin Rider, and that is an Omni Negate, which kind of baits a card that your opponent has. This is also an engine that's really strong with a card like Triple Tactic Talents, because if they don't respond to this engine at all, basically you have a free negation, a free card that baits your opponent's cards and makes it so you can freely combo off with your deck. Another thing about this engine that is strong is if it does end up being disrupted in some way, shape, or form, you're just baiting cards without using your engine, and that also makes it so you can use Triple Tactic Talents effectively. There are some caveats to this engine, and I'm going to bring up those caveats because I think those are the primary reasons why we don't see it at all this format. So to give a little bit of history, this engine stopped being played the moment Power of the Elements came out. That was the set that introduced Sprite and Tearlaments. So both those decks just didn't need an engine like this one. You can make the argument for Sprite because this has been seen on Sprite variants in the past. However, in Tearlaments, this engine was not needed or played at all, and then the format just shaped into a format where these cards were just not really that effective. However, the Tearlament format already ended, and we also had Sprite is still around, but not to some extent. So what is happening now? So the first thing we need to talk about is how strong this engine could have been against Kashtira, or it is against Kashtira, because Kashtira is part of the main outliers when it comes to this format. And this engine works alongside Kashtira because you don't it doesn't stop your normal summon and some stuff and shapes like that. So this is also an engine that plays well under Shifter, because Enchantress just banishes herself to add, so you can banish it from the hand, so that doesn't stop shifter from being an hindrance on you. It does stop you from equipping from the graveyard with Draco back, but that's not like the biggest deal. Um, so things to talk about. First, this engine is very very weak to Droll and Lockbird, and as I already shown in the past with a couple lists, like Droll is being seen everywhere. So just having an engine that kind of loses to Droll is not beneficial in a format where Droll is just very very popular. And like for example, this deck, the Scareclaw deck, is a deck that is already weak to Droll. So just pairing it up with an engine that is also weak to Droll just makes it a lot more criminal against you if that ends up happening. So that's and one primary reason that why we don't see this engine like being played. Another reason to bring up and another thing to notice is we already brought up the weaknesses in the Scareclaw deck. How about the other decks of the format? Why don't they play the Adventure engine? Well, let's look at some like decks that are doing well this format and just contrast them with the Brave token engine. We have Purely, we have Enchained, we have Rescue Ace, we have Chimera, we have Labyrinth. That's like one of the more popular decks. And if we take all these decks that are performing well in the here in the TCG, you're gonna notice a very common trend, and that is they do have part of their engine that does rely on the normal summon. In the case of Labyrinth, you have the Ariana. In the case of the Chimera deck, you have the Mirror Sword Knight, or Gazelle, like just to or the Springans Kit if you don't have Albaz engraved, is if you play that. In the Rescue Ace deck, a lot of people just normal summon Airlifter and just use it to grab emergency. That's like one of the key starting strategies to this deck. In the Unchained deck, a lot of people are playing Tour Guide, and Tour Guide is just like really really strong in this deck. It's your only one card starter in this strategy, and that also conflicts with Right. You have Purely, even though Purely can circumvent that issue with just special summoning their monsters with the memory spells. Sometimes you just want to use your normal summon on just like one of your monsters in order to just keep your engine rolling without wasting too many resources. And this deck is also weak to Droll, as well as a few of the other ones that we just aforementioned. So as of right now, the Adventure engine is just not that strong. And it's not because the engine itself is weak, it's just that the cards around it in the format just are not a right fit for it. I think in the future we might see this engine being played again, like in some way or shape or form. But I just wanted to touch upon that because I think this engine is still really really strong. I think there's still some benefits to this engine that gives you an advantage this format. However, there is a really concrete reason why it's not being seen a lot of play, and I just wanted to kind of ponder on that. But yeah, I hope you found this informative. I hope you found this to your interest. Let me know in the comments if you are a fan of Adventure and if you would play it again in the future. I think eventually we will move into a format where this engine will be like popular, or it would be like a good mainstay in main deck again. But until that happens, I guess that's up to debate. But I think it's always important to bring up these engines and how popular they were and the contrast between them and now, because who knows, maybe in the future this engine could be played and maybe there will be a future for it. But yeah, keep practicing and keep dueling.